Hey, Anurag.
Hi, GV. How are
Hi.
you?
Very good. How are you?
Good, good. So I hope I didn't pull you out of something for this.
No, it's okay. I mean, one more meeting in the day, so it's always one meeting to the next.
Right. So how have you been? All
Good,
good?
very good actually. Been busy. We have lots going on. These are crazy times. Good markets. Good markets from a public market perspective, from companies' perspective. Maybe not as good markets from an investor trying to buy in perspective because prices are high and the time frames have shrunk as to how long you get to do something, etc. But yeah.
Right.
Good. Yeah. Look, this is, we know our lives go up and down in cycles. So with markets, all good. Can't complain. We've seen it long enough. I've been doing this for 15 years. So
Hmm. Well, it's really good to have you back, and congratulations on being awarded the Young Alumni Achievers Award.
thank you.
Um, but I mean, you've really already achieved a lot, and your work has been recognized by many, right? In that light, what does this recognition in particular mean to you?
Doc, first, thanks to the institute, for this recognition. It's very special, mainly because it comes from the institute, and we all have fond memories of the times you have spent, and the institute has given us a lot. But this is, a big give in a way to recognize, what we have done in the corporate world, and and hopefully it's. It helps the institute over time as people like us go out and do good things which benefit the economy in the country, and over a period of time inspire more people to take the paths that we have taken and chosen. So look, this means a lot. It means that somewhat the institute also feels I'm on the right track, and maybe I should say I don't think of it as I've achieved a lot. It's still early days and the beginning, but it's always good to get a pat on the back and get some words of encouragement from people that are wiser than you are.
When was the last time you were on campus?
Oh, good question. So I was there for the reunion December of 19, just before the world shut, like a few months before that. So we had the 15th year reunion of a batch. And that was a lot of fun. It brought us back lots of memories. But I've been coming to the campus. I mean, I wouldn't say often, but as much as I can. Last few years, I've been making a few more Ahmedabad trips because I've taken over one of the boards, in Ahmedabad. So whenever I come there, I of course try and make it to the campus, maybe catch up if Professor Basant is available, etc. So and then I keep seeing some of the changes. So yeah, I mean, always looking for the opportunity to come back. Unfortunately, as a firm, we are too small to recruit from campuses, so that doesn't bring us back. But I've come to speak to students a few times as a part of some of the courses, and then like I said, come whenever I've come for a board meeting, I try and show up in the campus to absorb and relive some of the memories.
Well, unfortunately, we missed out on the opportunity to have you back for this particular thing because we obviously celebrate it and we share it with the entire institute, the entire IIMA community.
That's right.
And there's a lot that students can learn from. They can look up to role models like you, and so that's why we club it with the batch inauguration. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we missed out on that this
Yeah,
time.
no, it's sad we aren't able to do it. I hope there's another time when we can all be there together. And frankly, more than anything else, I would have loved to have expressed my gratitude to the Insti, in person if I could have, but that was not to be. But hopefully, we can do that soon.
Sure, sure. We'd love to have you back whenever you can. Do come over. Um, so, I mean, you were the gold medalist of your batch, and it is to be expected you learned a lot in the classroom. But tell me a bit about your outside the classroom experiences at AME that have stayed with you.
Yeah, a few things maybe in context. When I came to IMA, I was actually a married student, which meant I had a high opportunity cost of staying away from family to do what I did. So I came in with a fairly strong belief that I should spend most of my time productively in campus, which meant I wouldn't miss a class. I don't think I've missed any class in 2 years. And outside of class as well, I was fairly intense in my studies because I felt that is what I'm here for, and I should do this. I mean, of course, I'm not the only guy who's intense. The whole batch is intense. That's what it takes at IIM Ahmedabad, right? So, but I also am not blessed with genes that that let me stay awake after 11:30. So I also be one of those guys who slept very early, and which meant like I had to make very good productive use of every minute of the day potentially. So but look, obviously studies was not everything. The most important things are learned outside. Lots of fond memories of our groups. um, the teams that were formed to kind of do projects, and we had a really wonderful team. Have good memories of that. And then outside of that, study groups, we had other friend groups, which also, of course, beyond studying, also had fun, going out, etc. So again, lots of fond memories of Dom 15, which is the dorm I'm from. And lots of us still are very closely in touch, and frankly are also in many ways doing business with each other in some forms or in similar industries and overlap. So it's turned out to be a very small world. Lots of kind of memories of things that we did which were outside of comfort zone. I was the class rep in the first year of Section C, and we were participants in the tea night and so on. And I was forced to do some uncomfortable dancing around and so on. Certainly not my cup of tea. But it was a lot of fun moments. Staying up, kind of trying to motivate a team to win. And things like that. Of course, I don't remember. I don't think we won, but we made sure the following batch, Section C, did win, if I remember right, and we were closely, participating or helping motivating some of that. Yeah, so actually many things, right? I think we get stretched in many ways in the campus, right? Not just in studies, but what we are pushed to do in many ways, given just the high quality of people around you. Lots of fond memories of interactions with professors and kind of stretching our what we think we could do, and discussing future and how we can make an impact. And so yeah, so less memories of parties and ramp parties, etc. Simply because I wasn't up for most of those. I was known to flake on parties and maybe go back to sleep early and so on. But otherwise, lots of good friendships, lots of mind stretching discussions, yeah. So I feel like I grew a lot in those 2 years.
And so right out of the school, you joined McKinsey, but then joined Sequoia a couple of years later in 2006. At that time, obviously in the Indian context, the industry was in a nascent stage. But was it just your innate feeling that you would love this job, or did you have an inkling that this is going to be big? What was the driver there?
Yeah, no, look, it's always easier to connect the dots backwards, and I can tell you a perfect story of how this is always meant to be. But the honest truth is, look, a lot of life is about serendipity, and what matters is how you capitalize on the serendipity. I speak about this and I write about this. What I believe is a concept called serendipity sphere, which is to say how you take advantage of um, kind of doing the right things. You show up, and you do that many times and over a period of time, and that helps you build more lucky moments in life. And so a lot of this is like that. To me, what prompted me to first do McKinsey was, I thought that would be closest to what I thought I'd enjoy doing, which is be in kind of discussions with multiple companies and sectors, and have a more wide ranging learning opportunity and so on. So I thought I'd work with a lot of companies and advise them and kind of learn from them, etc. And 2 years in, it became clear to me that it worked a little differently, because the business pressures are such. You are looking to land large clients. You mostly work with large clients because those are the guys that can afford you, and you end up spending a lot of time because you're trying to help them solve problems and so on. And it wasn't as close to younger, more happening companies, the newest, fastest growing companies, etc. And back in campus, a friend of mine and I would be regulars for breakfast. First thing when breakfast opens, and one of our things that we did every day practically was to discuss new ideas, right? So what can be done, and everything from in the days when there was no ginger hotels, talking about low cost hotels to, talking about various things that we felt were businesses and opportunities. And, when I met folks at then the firm was called Westbridge, now Sequoia, and they explained what they do, it almost felt like people are going to pay me for what I was enjoying doing in my breakfast meetings and in weekends when I catch up with friends and so on. So that was almost an unbelievable offer. Somebody's going to pay you for what you thought you enjoy doing. And that was in December 2005 when I joined the firm. To this week, 15 years ago. And that's, it's just been this tremendous experience of learning, and I still can't believe that people would pay me so much for doing what I think I'd anyway do. So it's I've just been lucky, and tons of gratitude to the people that gave me the opportunity, and for Sequoia, for kind of allowing me to learn and grow with the firm.
You mentioned serendipity, and I want to ask you a few things about it. So I'll circle back to that again later. But given the focus and interest in technology startups in India these days, and there is some amount of government support as well in terms of favorable policies, one would have expected to see a few more unicorns coming out of India. Is there something that is holding it back, or some other kind of structural issues? And what would be your top 2 to 3 recommendations to give it a fillip?
Yeah. So Anurag, so first thing we have to acknowledge that India is still a developing country, right? Our GDP per capita is still low, overall. Although we have pockets which are as rich as some of the, other countries, etc. So India is not one India. There's just lots of Indias within, which work and behave very differently. And so, but at an overall net level, we are still a, small country. And when I started in this business in 2006, India had like 20-30 million broadband users, and broadband defined as 256 kbps, right? So we just didn't have the network and the infrastructure to even kind of build anything at that point. And but attempts were still being made. Companies had still started across a bunch of internet sectors, etc. So early days. I think lots have changed since Geo launched, and with that, a large proportion of India is now connected with real data, and they can consume real things. And what we are seeing after that has just been a significant acceleration in technology adoption. And COVID is, incidentally kind of been the next shot on the arm for the industry, where more people have gotten used to, not just being online, but transacting online, because, most supplies, offline supplies were shut, and people had to move to online mechanisms to derive, kind of any of their everything from groceries to education and so on, right? So this has kind of pulled everything forward. So if you ask me, the first 15 years of our investing careers in 2006 to now, to what we think the next 15 years would be completely different things, right? So if you had asked me in 2006 and looking at 2020, in 14 years, would you expect India to be where it is? I would have probably not guessed that there would be so much. But if you ask me today, sitting in now 2021, about 2020, let's say 2035, and say, can you imagine what India would be looking like? I think I'd still underestimate what is possible in that time frame. I think we all end up underestimating what can be achieved in the long term. We overestimate what can be done in the short term. And, much like that, when we started, we thought lots will happen. Of course, India took its own time. But if you look back at 15 years and see what has happened, I think a lot has happened. And to your point on unicorns, look, it's just, the journey has just started. Like, I think the number of, during the downturn, during the shutdown, I think we added 11 unicorns, something like that last year, 11 or 13, some number like that. And it'll only accelerate. Now the value creation is just completely accelerated because a few things are at play. One is, I think India is getting richer overall. I mean, every year we grow at some healthy percentage, and we will continue to remain one of the faster growing countries. And so that's going to add to people's ability to purchase and so on, right? Second is technology penetration, and that's substantially increased, right? And we are seeing it. And as people get more comfortable with kind of using technology, not just for entertainment but also for consumption, and we're going to see a significant change in acceleration of build out of these companies, and hence value creation. I think third, capital availability has become very strong. And I say capital availability for companies, certainly people like us and others who have entered the market to finance ideas which are risky. Again, 2006, there were barely, a handful of funds. Now there are so many more pockets of capital that are willing to, kind of power the dreams of founders. And so those things are completely going to change the trajectory of company building and value creation in the country. So if I were to hazard a guess, what we did now, I think we have, mid 30s, maybe 40 unicorns, something like that. I don't practice. It's just a milestone. But every year we're going to kind of grow that by 30-40%, and that will get accelerated over a period of time, in my opinion. So I think the ingredients are in place, and the capital is in place for people to build these companies, and the results will follow. And we are super optimistic. I think we have been through a grind when markets were shallow, technology adoption was low. I think that has changed in the last 2-3 years. We are seeing very, very strong signs of how India can build these good companies domestically, but also more importantly, I think we can build companies for the world. Well, the thing we saw with IT services and the tremendous market cap that's gotten built for us servicing, US and global customers from a technology perspective, we think that can happen to consumer. That can happen to SaaS, and it's already starting to show signs. We can be the software exporter of the world directly for software products over time, particularly because SaaS has, created a kind of a revolution in how software is consumed, both from a business model perspective, but also from a technology perspective, making it easier to deploy, software across the world. So that's really leveled the playing field. And I think we will have an advantage. India will have an advantage as someone that understands how to build software, right? And then, not just that, and we are starting to see signs where, India could be the largest education exporter of the world. We are starting to see what Byjus and, White Hat and others have started doing, which is kind of use Indian teachers to teach US kids. And we think this can be another very large theme. And over time, maybe India will also have global brands come out of India. Right? Today, we are starting to see what are called direct-to-consumer brands, D2C brands on Amazon, and own websites and Shopify and so on. So these kinds of things, what we're seeing is, what they're building is not just relevant for India; it could be relevant for the world. And we have examples of that within the portfolio that's gone out, out of India and servicing global markets to. And there are serious advantages of building something, the cost of design and, iteration, etc., is far lower in India, and people can experiment here and take something to the global market. So across many different themes, we are very optimistic that India could actually be a net exporter of software and services to the world. And that could build, not just, unicorns, but decacorns and very, very large companies over a period of time.
And so, at last count, I think you are on the board of 15 companies ranging from ed tech to healthcare, financial services to more traditional industries such as hospitality, paints, cosmetics, and there may be several others that you are involved with. And that gives you an insight into a broad expanse of the landscape. So, what would you recommend in terms of your top 2-3 recommendations in terms of trying to give acceleration to what's the pace of change right now?
Look, a few things that can be better. We have to continue to invest in infrastructure, right? So we need to lubricate the economy in as many ways as possible and eliminate friction in as many ways as possible. If you want to build businesses, you got to reduce friction, right? And India is amongst the higher friction economies and markets that you can find, right? Like our roads, our power availability, or internet infrastructure. There's much of it has long distance to go, and it's all going in the right direction, but it's still a long, much more can be done to put ourselves competitive to the rest of the world in terms of just infrastructure. Right? That's on the physical infrastructure. The other lubricant or the other raw material is capital, right? How do you enhance capital availability to companies? And when I say capital, it can be around debt, because debt markets in India are not as deep as what you find in the West, and the number of ways in which companies can borrow, etc., is still limited because our banks are relatively conservative when it comes to lending, and most of it is against assets or promoter guarantees and so on and so forth, which are all kind of not risk friendly in many ways, right? So I think there is stuff to be done there to encourage startups, and to find ways for startups to get access to capital, of that type, right? And similarly, on the public markets, right, a lot can be done to ease companies accessing the markets, and a lot of the regulations were not meant for technology-oriented companies. A lot of the regulations were not meant to be for companies with good founders, lots of good corporate governance. A lot of what has been done in the past where to avoid fly by night, ill-meaning founders from, kind of scamming the market and so on. So there's a lot of regulation that have been set with that mindset. And today's world is a little different. Technology companies work differently. There are funds, there are investors, and governance is usually something that is addressed well in these companies. So lots of reasons why some of that should be rethought, and the friction again to access capital from the market should go away, right? And again, a lot can be done even for private market capital in terms of taxation and clarity on taxation, etc. That can allow for more capital to come in. And finally, I mean, for businesses to thrive and for more external capital and external companies to come, our regulatory and judicial systems, etc. Need to kind of get faster and clearer about how things will end up, because nobody today wants to go into a court on any matter. So without some of that, it becomes hard. So there's lots of things that one can talk about. But all that said, I still think India kind of manages to build companies. Founders manage to find a way. And I'd say because we are very used to building stuff with high friction, we're also when we go outside of India and try build companies, our companies seem to do a really good job because they just find it far easier, right? Like they say, if you can drive in India, you can drive anywhere in the world. It's somewhat like that. If you can start and build a company in India, you can hopefully do it anywhere in the world, because it just usually is a lot easier to do. And so this is kind of we are getting battle hardened in an environment like this, which is not a bad thing, but you can make it a tad easier. And if you want to compete with the global companies and build world beating companies, then I do think we got to lubricate the system and reduce the friction and eliminate friction wherever we can for companies to really go for it and compete globally.
And so before the pandemic struck, there were these really entrenched companies, traditional companies doing a lot of work, and even some of the tech companies who had sort of established themselves. But then the pandemic happened, and it sort of reshuffled the cards. It created lots of advantages and disadvantages, and some opportunities and challenges for the existing players, but as well for somebody who's looking to start up now, right? So how has it affected your industry?
Yeah, look, I would say the pandemic is clearly a human tragedy, right? And it's affected a lot of people. And we have companies in our portfolio and extended families. People have been affected and so on, right? But every crisis is also an opportunity in many ways. One of the things we tried talking to our companies about is to say, hey, look, here is a chance for us to relook at the very core and see what we can do. And what we can do better and with limited resources, etc. Because here is a time where there's likely to be a resource crunch. So we kind of sent out a warning signal to most of our companies saying, hey, this is a black swan event. Let's kind of be geared up to deal with it. Let's cut out the excesses and kind of really just focus on what we need to do to get going and survive through a period which could be very tough. Now, nobody can predict how quickly things turn around, but we did have a reasonable recovery. And India, it looks like much of it was also just supply constrained because of the lockdowns in the market, etc. So thankfully the demand was all right, and so things did come back. But what has also happened, like you rightly pointed out, is I think there have been gainers and there have been losers, right? So by and large, anything that was technology driven, technology kind of focused has actually gained because those markets have remained broadly open. Anything that has been significantly offline or in industries which require travel, like hospitality, or travel related businesses, or even things like apparel, because people weren't really going out that much, and so retail oriented formats actually struggle a little bit. And so all of that, so there was this whole dichotomy of the have and the have nots, and capital also started flowing like that, right? It went to more technology oriented themes, didn't go as much to the offline-ish businesses, etc. And so yeah, there was a big change in kind of how businesses were affected or not, and how they recovered or not. But thankfully now, after Diwali, in a way, I think things are looking back up, and most of the restrictions are gone for lots of businesses. So most people are up and about. Maybe we truly do have herd immunity. Who knows? But based on what I see on this thing, and if Bangalore traffic is an indicator, it's all back. So yeah, so businesses are coming back, which is good. And I think At the same time, I do think capital availability has gone up. Public markets are good. So many good things, have come together now. But of course, it's only still been a few months, so it will take, a few quarters for companies to kind of really figure out how to take advantage of the new growth opportunities that will come up and reorient themselves to a more, kind of a benign market environment that we see today.
So what's next for Sequoia? And then, what is it doing? Obviously, in light of all these changes, but what is it doing to take advantage of not just the change brought about by the pandemic, but also, in terms of your vision of, what the future is going to pan out like, and the kind of bets that you're going to be making.
Yeah. So look, we'll continue to do what we've always been focused on, which is to find these disruptive ideas, back daring entrepreneurs to build what we call legendary companies. That's kind of been core to what we do. When we do that from an idea stage to IPO and beyond, in a way, we are very long term committed shareholders to companies, right? So nothing of fundamental nature changes, but clearly, the pandemic, like I said, has accelerated digital adoption, which means kind of the bets we were placing in that direction, right, are coming to fruition, and kind of starting to show, traction much faster and sooner, which means, we'll have to be faster in our approach on how do we identify and kind of partner with some of these founders and opportunities. It opens up new markets, right? Like, for example, agri-tech could be a very interesting, large space over time. Again, as technology adoption improves, goes to supply chains and back to the farms, etc. We think there could be an opportunity there. We have a couple of investments, early stage in that. People are talking about space tech, and India could be the place, that could be the capital again for exporting space technologies. We are looking at it. I mean, we are not smart enough to understand it at this point, but we are trying to get to learn more about some of those themes. Like I mentioned, India could be the capital for, SaaS in the world, and, in a way, using our high quality but lower cost technology talent, we think we could be building products for the world. Again, there are a few good examples, some in our portfolio that have succeeded doing that, and we think there'll be many more that will follow. So we are following all of these themes, and our job is to try and see if we can be slightly ahead of the curve, and that is what it takes to kind of, if you can spot and be ahead of the curve and partner with these companies early, and if they succeed, then that will give the nonlinear outcomes that we are seeking. So yeah, very, very focused. We've probably worked harder than ever during the COVID period, and it's probably true for most of us in the Zoom land. But yeah, I mean, we think the opportunity ahead of us is pretty strong. India is in a really good place. Markets are benign at this point. I mean, market cycles will come and go, but fundamentally, I think companies have learned that they can actually get to scale and build massive businesses, and that's really what we're backing. We're super excited. So next few years should be interesting.
So now let's shift gears and talk about certain other kinds of things. For example, I mean, you are a self-confessed introvert, right? But your job requires you to meet a lot of people, talk to them, connect with them, and in a sense, build a strong relationship over a period of time, right? So that, I mean, how did you overcome this apparent disconnect for you in terms of what you are and what you're required to do?
When I got this job, one of the partners then at the firm, like literally after accepting it, I was thinking about saying, oh my God, like this job is going to mean I'm going to meet a lot of people. It's not something I truly enjoy doing. So I called him and said, hey, his name was KP. I said, hey, KP, I have this one concern. I'm not necessarily a guy who likes to go, and meet strangers. And so I just want to get your thoughts. And he said, hey, don't worry. Like, I'm completely like you. And it's all okay. It's going to be easy and cool and so on, right? Like, and it turned out he was not like me, but it also turned out that there are parts of this. Look, and I think being introverted, is usually seen in a more social setting when you don't want to go have small talk in a party, which I still can't do. But the beauty of our job and the beauty of this role is that you actually meet a lot of wonderful people who are aspiring to change the world, right? So it's actually very motivating to go meet a founder and have a conversation about how they see the world differently and how they are kind of, in a way, lining up the ducks, to speak for that future world, right? So, I've never found that it was energy sapping. if you will, of meeting people who are looking to change the world. It's usually very energizing to meet people that show you a part of the world that you didn't know, and it's super energizing to learn new things. Maybe that's one thing that's worked for me. I mean, I love to learn new things. I want to be, I want to know what's going on around at least new sectors, new industries. So it's frankly a privilege to have a job where you can actually see the world a little bit ahead of other people, because many people are coming and talking to you about what's going to happen next, right? So yeah, that's not been a challenge to that extent. And frankly, maybe once it's a job and once certain things you have to do for the job, you do it. But I've learned that there are many ways to be successful, and a lot of people talk about having to widely network and so on and so forth. I think of it a little differently. I try to be helpful to people as much as I can, and I do feel like what goes around comes around. And so if you are genuinely helpful to other people or interested in their success, they reciprocate, right? And so in a way, I still don't think I'm the most networked. I don't reach out and do dinners with folks, etc., when I'm in a new city all the time. I mean, I choose to meet fewer people, and I feel like I'll have deeper connections but fewer of them, and both things work. Yeah, so I think things get sorted out over a period of time. I don't think there's a fundamental disadvantage in any way. I mean, if you find ways and means around that, you would be quite fine in my view.
So you've also come up with certain life principles, and you like to talk about it, and you've also written about it. So everybody wants to be successful and they want luck to be on their side. And you're a firm believer that chance or luck or serendipity, of course, you distinguish between luck and serendipity, but you believe that does play an important part in one's life, but that one can sort of work at it and improve chances of getting lucky. In other words, creating luck is actually a skill. And you've also written and talked about how one can grow their serendipity sphere and how organizations can design for serendipity. And this is probably this has had an enduring quality to it, in the sense that it has probably happened frequently enough and in all kinds of situations for you to trust it enough, right? Could you share some examples of this from something that happened with you in the professional sphere in Sequoia?
I don't know if I can think of immediate examples professionally, but let's talk about the principle first, right? And maybe it'll trigger some thought processes on what happened, etc. But the way I think about serendipity is events happen, right? Extraneous events happen, and they can be good or bad. You can get a break. You can bump into someone. You can be sitting next to somebody in a flight, in a conversation. Something happens. The question is really whether those things happen or not. You can't control those events, but what you can control is how you react to those events. So to just give you an example, look. So if you think about, again, like I've mentioned some examples from my personal life on kind of things that you did not plan for but happens, and now I can't recollect off the top of my head anything that would be worthwhile mentioning. Many small examples of things that you think of as lucky, but to me, I think it's really just about saying, do you find something? Do you have a prepared mind when you intersect an opportunity or a lucky break? Because many, again, there's lots of research on lucky people, unlucky people, how they behave. Again, very famous experiments of, did you notice a $10 bill that was lying on the floor while you're walking? Why do lucky people notice that? Unlucky people, so-called unlucky people, meaning self-proclaimed unlucky people, don't seem to notice that. Many experiments, again, that kind of talk about the mindset of coming to a situation with a positive frame of mind, how that helps you grab opportunities, etc., right? So again, many things. I mean, even simple, like how I got into Sequoia, you could argue was from a conversation with a friend at McKinsey who just happened to go to Warburg, and like right after the conversation, he got a call from his headhunter to say, hey, they were looking for someone junior at Westbridge, and which was now Sequoia. And that conversation, if that had not happened, if I had no curiosity about what he was doing, it wouldn't have led to him recommending me for the role, and hence me making it. So there are many things where even how IIMA happened, or why I chose to do IIMA, etc. Right? Like, again, going back to my Wipro days and some other conversations in which it so happened that one of my colleagues got into IIM Calcutta, and then he told me about how he thought about it, and that triggered something, and I had that combined with a particular incident that happened in one of the all hands meetings at Wipro, which kind of prompted me to think about life beyond being a technology guy and being a business guy. These things coming together, and then you say, hey, look, let me understand this better and work towards it, etc. But the way I think about it is, look, you first step is to show up, meaning for you to get lucky, you got to show up, right? And I believe in showing up. I told you about not missing a class. I genuinely believe that you give your best, like you show up for every given opportunity, and showing up is in different things, right? I think early on in your life, um, I do think people should not over index on being productive, meaning I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, right? Not being open-minded to new experiences, right? Actually show up, like just say yes, unless you really have a strong reason to say no to new things, right? So say yes, because by saying yes, you and showing up, you are kind of increasing your chances of intersecting something. Second is just knocking on doors, right? Like knock on more doors. Like the worst thing that can happen is people will say no. The best thing that can happen is people can give you a break. So write to people. Again, one of the example from my career, and in this case, this was a founder who actually wrote a cold email. This was in 2011 February. This company is called Rebel Foods now. At that point, it was called Fasos. He just wrote a cold email to me saying, "Hey, I'm doing this," and very kind of well written 3 paragraphs, right? That just made me stand up and take notice and immediately give him a call back. And in 10 days we had a term sheet out to him, and we became investors, etc. Happened from a cold email, right? Like that is knocking on the door. I mean, if he had not taken that shot, he had not knocked on the door, right? That's not what happened. I mean, there is a popular saying that says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So the question is, are you willing to take the shot? And most people are afraid of failure and they don't want to take the shot. But the truth is, the worst thing that can happen is, like you failed or people said no, but what's the downside of asking? So I encourage my son, say, hey, ask. And he will write to tech support of somebody and saying, I'm a student, this software is $50, I'm from India, I can't afford it. And and sometimes he's got software for free, right? Because that's so that's great, because the worst thing is they can say no, and that's fine, because you're anyway going to pay $50 otherwise, and now you got something free as a student. So it's great. So to me, I think taking the shot, which is knocking on doors, and you do that, the third part of the third dimension of this is doing that long enough. And many people give up very fast. Oh, I tried it, didn't work out. Like life is not that easy. Like you keep trying and you keep trying until you're successful. And many things, I like to argue, is all about compounding. Everything compounds. Your luck compounds, your knowledge compounds, your networks compound, your kind of your own knowledge compounds. And so I think a lot of things is about just doing this over a long period of time. So if you play the long game and you play, you kind of are in that for long enough, I do think, you get luckier and luckier with time. And, so these 3 dimensions, kind of showing up, knocking on doors, and doing it long enough, in my view, kind of expands your serendipity sphere. And, again, so many examples, just so many examples. If you look at history, innovation, inventions, careers, changes, so many things, like people have just serendipitously encountered, but had a prepared mind to kind of take advantage of the break they got. And so the sad part is, not having that prepared mind and a positive orientation means that you would let go of so many opportunities that are flying just right under your nose that we are not noticing. And I think that effort to make that simple change, of showing up, of keeping an open mind, knocking on doors and doing it long enough, like would get all of us lucky. And I truly do believe that we should all attempt it.
And looking back at all that you have achieved so far, obviously there's a lot more to go, and I'm sure we'll keep hearing about you. But looking at all that you've achieved so far, what according to you is your biggest achievement?
Yeah, this is actually a very profound question in many ways, and it's one that I asked myself late 2016 when I went for Vipassana. And it was for those that know Vipassana, it's like a 11-day program where you go to a certain destination where you are kind of literally locked up, with a bunch of people. You meditate through the day, and you lead a very simple life with no luxuries, no phone, importantly, no eye contact, no books, no speaking, and all you do is meditate through 10 days, and the 11th day is when you leave. So a part of that experience is it's actually a very, very enriching experience in many ways, because you kind of think a lot during the period. What else can you do? You can do, there are no other distractions, right? So you think a lot. And one of the things that it takes you back is to play back your life and think about what you did. And kind of so it's super clarifying. It's so through that, you play back, and yes, yeah, look, lots of so-called achievements, whether it's kind of even getting into IIM Ahmedabad, like being a gold medalist there, or getting the job of your dreams at that point, or even later, even a better job in terms of what you really thought you wanted to do, etc. Good family, so many things to thank, God for in many ways, and have gratitude for. But you go back and think about, look, what is your true achievement? And it turned out for me, it was a very, very simple, very, very simple, but very, very insightful incident that happened back in my undergrad, when I was at REC Trichy, now called NIT. And I was the campus placement rep for computer science department, which is what I was. And the first 10 days, I got my job on the first day. Like Wipro was back in campus, so I got selected. So I was kind of out. So, but I was as the placement coordinator, I was working with companies, and I saw like lots of people. It's a very stressful time, right? When people don't make it day one, day two, day three, and keeps going on. So you're like you're really stressed, and so you kind of see the human side of what happens to this process. So I think around the 10th or the 11th day was my break day, where I step off, somebody else steps in, to play the role I was playing, to coordinate with the company and bring them to the rooms where interviews happened, coordinate with the students, all of that, right? So we still had a bunch of people that were not placed, and we had Polaris coming on campus on that day. And Polaris, again, regular IT services shop, but was focused on databases as one of the themes that they were working on, right? So, and we had this student in our class who was really interested in databases. She had done a summer project in some kind of university library management system and database and so on. So I really thought he would make it to that particular company, and it was my break day, but I chose to land up in kind of mufti clothing. I wasn't dressed for the occasion, but I just I just wanted to see how it was going. And by now I show up, so I showed up again. And part of it was I went in to greet the company's representatives, and was having a conversation with them. And that was between the second shortlist and the final shortlist. And so I saw the list of names, and this guy's name was on the shortlist. I was super happy that he was on. But I came out, and an hour or 2 hours later, when they announced the final shortlist, this gentleman's name was not on the shortlist. And now I don't know exactly what happened, but I thought I should give it a shot. I went in, spoke to them, and made the case for this person, saying why I thought he was a fit. And then they added his name to the final shortlist and gave him a job. Right now, look, this is not a big deal, but this was the highlight of my life and the biggest achievement I've had. Right, to me, if you can touch lives of people, you can make a meaningful contribution to them. I think that is a real achievement. And part of my writing process is really to see if I can add value to people. And it's a high leverage way of doing it. I can mentor people, I can talk to people, I do some of that. But it's one-on-one, it's like one person benefits directly, etc. But I think if you can touch people through, and make changes in their ideas because they associate with somebody else and they learn from it, they benefit from it, I think that is real impact. I hope I can write more, and I'm not sure I have that much wisdom, but hopefully as I get smarter, or if I have some things that have benefited me, I'd love to share. And if other people learn from that experience, then I think that will be achievement. So that's my highest achievement if I were to talk about what I really achieved.
So is there a side to GV that few of us know about, right? Like what are the activities that you enjoy most outside of work? What are some of your, other passions?
Yeah, not super interesting. What do I look forward to? I mean, time with family and so on. But I play squash, which is a game I picked up very late in my life, and so I mean, I play once a week usually. Maybe twice sometimes, but that's something I enjoy doing. I work out. It's something again I've started doing. I've been doing for the last 5-6 years to I do believe a sound mind and a sound body. And for the type of job we do, I think fitness is a very, very important thing. I like to read a lot. It's not something I've done all my life, but I feel I'm too late, so I'm trying to make up. So I try to read. Last year, I'm happy I was able to read about 50 books, which is good. Let's see what I can do this year. Like I mentioned, I think I enjoy writing, and I want to try and do more of that. My new interests are in biology for whatever reason. It was very far away from what I've done, but I'm fascinated by the most complicated systems in these worlds are all biological. So I'm trying to learn more about biology. What else? I Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, look. Otherwise, you know, mostly focused on work and family for most part. So, not super interesting. No passion, no golf, no none of that really, for me at least.
Well, GV, it was great talking to you, and it was a pleasure. We would love to have you back on campus sometime and talk to students.
I totally love
And
to come. Thank you
yeah,
for.
do let us know when you would like to come, and we'll facilitate. And congratulations again. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and look forward to coming back to campus.
thanks, GV.
Thank
So I
you.
think this is where we end the interview. We'll just trim out the rest, all the stuff.
All right.
So yeah, it was great, GV, and thanks for doing this. Yeah.
Super.
All right.
Thanks so much, Anurag.
Sure.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.